When I was a child, I once sat sobbing on the floor beside my mother's piano as she played and sang. For there was in her singing a shy yet solemn glory my smallness could not hold. And when I was asked why I was crying, I had no words for it. I only shook my head and went on crying. Why is it that music, at its most beautiful, opens a wound in us, an ache, a desolation, deep as a homesickness for some far-off and half-forgotten country? I've never understood why this is so. But there's an ancient legend from the other side of the world that gives away the secret of this mysterious sorrow. For centuries on centuries, we have been wandering, but we were made for paradise, as deer for the forest. And when music comes to us with its heavenly beauty, it brings us desolation, for when we hear it, we have to remember that lost native country. We dimly remember the fields, their fragrant, windswept clover, the bird songs in the orchards, the wild white violets in the moss by the transparent streams. And shining at the heart of it is the longed-for beauty of the one who waits for us, who will always wait for us in those radiant meadows. He also came to live with us and wanders where we wander. On a snowy Christmas Eve, a young man made his way along a dark, deserted cobblestone street. His name was Thomas, and he was wrapped in a woolen cloak, a knapsack flung across his back. In his hand hung a tin candle lantern. Behind the lantern's glass panes sat the remains of a spent candle. When he saw the glow of candlelight through the shop window of the candler, the village candle maker, he hurried his steps, turning onto the snow-covered pathway. In Thomas's way stood a beggar, shaking his cup for coins. Thomas pushed him aside impatiently and opened the door to the shop. Inside the shop, metal pots filled with tallow and beeswax hung from a stone hearth. The old candler stood with his sculptor's tools in his hands, surrounded by the beautiful creations he had made out of wax. "I'm so lucky to find you here," Thomas said. "The town is empty." The old man gazed silently at Thomas as the young man glanced about at the rows of sculpted candles. There were sprites and fairies, angels with see-through wings, and fragile princesses in gowns as delicate as lace. They smelled of myrrh and frankincense and meadow flowers. "You are a foolish old man," Thomas said. "You spend hours making beautiful things that devour themselves. How long before the flame melts an angel into an ugly clump of wax?" He pointed to a simpler candle. "I only need light. I'll take one of those." The candler looked steadily at Thomas. "The Christmas candles are of no good to you." Thomas was startled by that stern response, but he laughed. "It would do me much good not to stumble in the dark. Are you playing me, old man? I will not pay more for your candle than it is worth. It is only 4 coppers, but you may find it costly." The old man's words were strangely serious. "I have money. Give me the candle," Thomas shouted. "It is late and my family is waiting for me. I need illumination to find my way." "Then it is illumination you desire?" the candler asked softly. "That is what I need," Thomas replied. The candlemaker nodded slowly. "So you do." He took a candle, dipped it over a flame, then placed it inside the lantern's tin frame. Thomas dropped some coins on the counter and walked to the door. The old man's lips pursed in an odd, amused smile. "Merry Christmas, my brother," he said. The farewell surprised Thomas. "To you as well," he stammered. Then he hastily stepped out into the darkness, the lantern lighting the road ahead. Thomas had traveled only a short distance when a shadow emerged from an alleyway. "A robber," he thought fearfully. He held out his lantern. "Who's there?" he called. Then in the light of the candle, he saw it was only a frail woman huddled against the cold. "Sir," cried the woman, "a pence, please?" His eyes narrowed in contempt at the beggar. Then as he looked at her more closely, he gasped. He knew the face well. It was his own mother. "Mother, what is this prank? Why do you greet me as a beggar?" The woman stared at him. "Just a halfpence, sir?" "Why are you here? Where are my brothers, my sister?" Thomas asked. He reached out to her, but she pulled away. "Mother, how peculiar you act. You will catch a chill. Here, take my cloak." He removed it and held it out to her. Cautiously, the woman came forward, then snatched the coat and retreated into the shadows. But as she moved from the lantern's light, her appearance changed. She was not his mother, but a beggar indeed. With Thomas's cloak in hand, she disappeared into the darkness. "A strange trick," he said to himself. He wrapped his arms around his chest, wishing he had kept his cloak. "It is I who will catch a chill." Thomas walked on, quickening his pace against the frigid air. As he passed beneath the awning of a darkened inn, the candle revealed another form lying in the gutter. He held out the candle and again gasped, "Has the universe gone mad? Elin, my brother, are you sick?" He set the lantern down and pulled his brother's limp arm around his shoulder, struggling to lift him. "Elin, I cannot carry you." He pounded on the inn's door, which was opened by a grim-faced woman. "My brother is sick, and I fear he will freeze before I can come back for him. May I bring him inside?" "For the price of a night," she said, "a shilling." "A shilling?" Thomas reached into his pocket. "I have only 6pence. The old woman scowled and began to shut the door. "Wait, my knapsack is worth more than a shilling," Thomas cried. "And the trousers inside are newly tailored. I will give you everything." The old innkeeper looked at the bundle, then reached out a fat hand. Thomas flung his knapsack from his back and handed it to her with the last of his money. She opened the door. "Bring him in." Leaving the lantern on the curb, Thomas dragged the man into the inn's foyer. As he gently laid him on the wooden floor, he suddenly saw that the man's face, like the beggar's, had changed. "So it is your brother who lay in the gutter," croaked the woman. Thomas gasped. He's not my brother." "You are mad," the woman muttered, and she shoved him out the door. Outside, Thomas picked up his lantern. He looked into its glass panes. "There's something strange about your light," he whispered. Thomas had just glimpsed the bright lights of home when he came across a little girl shivering in the cold. "Have you anything to eat, sir?" she asked in a faint voice. Thomas felt a stir in his chest. The child was tiny, no bigger than his sister. Suddenly, he pulled the lantern away. He wouldn't shine it in her face. He could guess its trick. And what could he do for this poor waif? He had no food or money left to give. "I have nothing," Thomas murmured as he left her, willing himself not to turn around. Penniless and cold, Thomas trudged onward, hardly glancing at the familiar houses of his childhood. His own home was dressed for the season, and music and laughter came from inside. As he entered, his mother greeted him with great excitement. "Thomas," she exclaimed, "you have arrived." Hearing her cry, his sister and brothers rushed into the room to welcome his arrival. When the joviality had begun to settle, his mother looked at him peculiarly. "Thomas, where is your cloak?" "Yes," said his brother Elin, "and why have you no pack?" Thomas gazed solemnly into their bewildered faces. "I gave everything away." "To whom?" his mother asked, puzzled. Thomas looked down at the waning Christmas candle. The old man spoke the truth. "You are costly." A smile of understanding slowly spread across his face, but of great worth. "What is this riddle? What old man?" his sister asked. "A wise man who sculpts candles," Thomas replied as he gazed at the face of his sister. And just then, in his mind, her bright face became the woeful, hungry face of the poor child in the cold. Thomas looked at the sumptuous banquet laid out on the table. Suddenly, he turned to the door. "Thomas, where are you going?" his sister asked. "I must see about another member of our family," he said. And as he left the warm, fragrant house for the cold night, Thomas's heart was warm with joy. For that Christmas Eve, a lesson was learned and taken to heart. If we will see things as they truly are, we will find that all, from great to small, belong to one family. And this truth, known from the beginning of time, is perhaps seen best in the joyous illumination of Christmas. We enter this evening as we enter a quartet, listening again for its particular note, the interval where all seems possible, order within time when action is suspended, and we are pure in heart, perfect in will. We enter the evening whole and well defended, but at the quick of self-intense detachment, that is the point of burning far from passion, and this we know is what we always meant. And even love must learn it in some fashion, to move like formal music through the heart, to be achieved like some high, difficult art. We enter the evening as we enter a quartet, listening again for its particular note, which is your note, perhaps your special gift, a detached joy that flowers and makes bloom the longest silence in the silent room. And there would be no music if you left. Once in the dream of a night I stood, lone in the light of a magical wood, soul deep in visions that poppy-like sprang. The spirits of truth were the birds that sang, and spirits of love were the stars that glowed, and spirits of peace were the streams that flowed in that magical wood in the land of sleep. Lone in the night, in the light of that magical grove, I felt the stars of the spirits of love gather and gleam round my delicate youth, and I heard the song of the spirits of truth. To quench my longing, I bent below by the streams of the spirits of peace that flow in that magical wood in the land of sleep.
Some of you have asked me, what have I been doing since my retirement? Of course, you know I've been doing fantastic things. Napping. That was it. Okay, so I did have one notable achievement since I saw you last. And that is that I got to write the words to a new alma mater for my old high school. It was premiered last December with music written by a real-life professional composer. Now, I do find it kind of ironic that I'm the one who wrote the words, since I had few friends at Marshall High, didn't much fit in except with the band kids, and was basically a social outcast. But I did it by cracky, and it was the hardest graded project I've ever done. But you ought to hear the version I couldn't submit. Then there's my retirement era obsession with everything on the Food Network. I especially like the show Chopped, though perhaps I've embraced it a little too thoroughly, since I find myself screaming at the contestants, "No, not the truffle oil!" Please be assured, I have not lost my innate disinterest in actually cooking. I just like looking at all that food. And I mean, who wouldn't love a network that airs a show called Cupcake Wars? Okay, so I have done more stuff, and this is probably the most exciting thing. After reading a book called The Consumerist Manifesto Handbook, which I admit deeply moved me, I started demanding my right to product perfection. When that Army's Dutch chocolate torte wasn't frosted perfectly, I emailed them about the cake's shortcomings, and they sent me a refund. And Campbell's soup? Yeah, they sent me coupons when I complained to them that their so-called chunky soup had broth that was lacking in both boldness and proper viscosity. But my finest work has to be my correspondence with Mrs. Freshly, you know, Little Debbie Light. Here's what I wrote to them after purchasing one of their products. The cream-filled chocolate chip cookies pictured on the package look so yummy and jam-packed with chips. But alas, the actual product did not live up to the packaging. I am looking at one of the cookies right now. It has 3.5 chips on one side and 3 chips on the other. Cookie number 2 has 3 chips on one side and 4 chips on the other. I think you get my drift. Your package assured me that I was getting 8 tasty, cream-filled, chip-covered cookies, when what I really got was a box of chip-deprived so-so cookies. Are all your products like this? Do I need to switch back to Little Debbie? Please advise. One thing I seem to have lost in my retirement is my ability to be a dreamer. I used to make all kinds of grand plans, some of which actually were accomplished. But I seem to have lost the knack. But maybe I'm just actually between dreams right now. What I do still have is the ability to help other people nurture their dreams. And I guess that's a pretty good thing. Now, since the theme of tonight's celebration is First You Dream, let me take a moment to offer you the scientific lowdown on the various types of dreams. There are co-dreams, C-O-D, which stands for Cool Original Dreams, like coming up with Post-it notes. Then there are Mo-dreams, which are major, outrageous dreams, such as the invention of the wheel. Another category is PO dreams, or personal opportunity dreams, like that new career you want to pursue, or learning not to gag on eggplant. These are all dreams that can occur either during waking or sleeping hours, and often consume large amounts of your time, but also give you immense pleasure. Finally, there are duh dreams, or dreams unclassified here. That's like everything I couldn't think of. Of course, there are those dreams you have exclusively during sleep. They might be happy or sad or scary, or perhaps they're like my dreams, which I would classify as carnival ride dreams. This is a legitimate recent dream of mine. It went like this. I show up to a performance, and I don't know if I'm supposed to play the horn or do a comedy routine. Either way, I know I'm not prepared. Where are my props? Especially my orange choir robe. Now, by the way, I do not own an orange choir robe. I couldn't decide whether my comedy routine should be about religion or music. The only way to access the stage was by crawling on hands and knees through some sort of convoluted passageway. Then there was a marching band, but I couldn't decide what instrument to play, and besides it was going to be like a 4-mile march, so forget it. Somebody told me that MSU had beaten U of M in some sort of athletic event. Then there was a cafeteria line. Wait, how am I going to get to the stage? What am I going to wear? Couldn't I just perform in front of the closed circuit feed so I wouldn't have to crawl to the stage? And where is my orange choir robe? It's exhausting. So apparently, I replaced my fun dreaming with ruminating. You know, thinking stuff over and over in my 3-ring circus brain until it takes on a whole new life of its own. I was really good at it before, but now I'm magnificent. Of course, I enjoy ruminating about my own life, but I spend probably even more time thinking about imponderables like human suffering and poverty and war. Needless to say, I don't sleep much. I used to think that as I got older, I'd know more stuff. I think I must be doing something wrong, because there are apparently whole scads of people out there who've got things figured out, like Oprah. She writes a column called What I Know for Sure, and she's written tons of them. I don't think I could crank out even one. And the AARP magazine has a column called What I Know Now. All I know now is that I'm pretty inept at this whole knowing thing. Furthermore, if I'm inept at this, should I be aiming to become ept? And since I'm overwhelmed by it all, should I try for whelmed? Which brings me to marbles, and the imponderable question, why are marbles made of glass? Sure, the original marbles were marble, so what happened? Did someone wake up one day and slap themselves on the forehead and say, gosh, these darn marbles just aren't marbly enough? Maybe that person dreamed, I'll bet if I could make them out of something less marble-esque, people would buy them and maybe use them for floral arranging. That's it. I know. I can make marbles out of glass. Eureka! I see a whole new world. Maybe someday people will gather up fish from the sea, put them in big bowls and decorate them with miniature deep sea divers and marbles. I studied that for a long time to find that factual information for you. Somehow I don't think you believe me. have to do with marbles? Well, my friends, the answer is everything. You remember that crazy dream you had that one time in your life? The dream that lived so deep in your heart that you couldn't let it go? The one that made you happy and invigorated just thinking about it? The one that somebody told you was impossible, and then someone else told you it was stupid? And then there was the person who said, "Are you crazy? You could never do that." The naysayers. The people who think you've lost your marbles. But you haven't. You have them right there in your hand. A visual, tactile representation that, though maybe your dreams haven't always come true or worked exactly the way you would hoped or planned, your heart remains open. And if, like me, you're not much of a dreamer, you can say to that visionary in your life who may need a little encouragement, "You haven't lost your marbles. Maybe you've just misplaced them. Here, take one of mine. And know that I'm with you in spirit, and I believe in your dream. That's why I gave you 2 marbles, one to keep and one to share. You'll know just the right time to use it."
The name of the poem is Romantics. The subtitle is Johannes Brahms and Clara Schumann. The modern biographers worry how far it went, their tender friendship. They wonder just what it means when he writes he thinks of her constantly, his guardian angel, beloved friend. The modern biographers ask the rude, irrelevant question of our age, as if the event of two bodies meshing together establishes the degree of love, forgetting how softly Eros walked in the 19th century, how a hand held over long or a gaze anchored in someone's eyes could unseat a heart, and nuances of a dress not known in our egalitarian language could make the redolent air tremble and shimmer with the heat of possibility. Each time I hear the intermezzi, sad and lavish in their tenderness, I imagine the two of them sitting in a garden among late-blooming roses and dark cascades of leaves, letting the landscape speak for them, leaving us nothing to overhear. In the great green room, there was a telephone and a red balloon and a picture of the cow jumping over the moon. And there were 3 little bears sitting on chairs, and 2 little kittens and a pair of mittens, and a little toy house, and a young mouse, and a comb, and a brush, and a bowl full of mush, and a quiet old lady who was whispering, "Hush." Good night, room. Good night, moon. Good night, cow jumping over the moon. Good night, light and the red balloon. Good night, bears. Good night, chairs. Good night, kittens. And good night, mittens. Good night clocks and good night socks. Good night little house and good night mouse. Good night comb and good night brush. Good night nobody. Good night mush. And good night to the old lady whispering hush. Good night stars. Good night air. Good night noises everywhere.
Heather.